Ready? Steady? Go.
Let's do it.
Do you know the word integrity?
I do.
How would you describe the word integrity for someone who doesn't know the word?
As a starting point, I often think about my dad's definition of integrity. So growing up, he would always say, integrity is what you do, is doing the right thing when nobody is looking. So I think there's something in there to that. It feels like a starting point, I think, for me. It feels like an anchoring point.
What is integrity for you personally?
There's a practice that I do at the end of my yoga practices, and I will touch my forehead, touch my lips, and touch my heart. And that is to remind me to try to be in alignment with my thoughts, my words, my actions, my feelings. And that is, I think, when I feel in integrity, I feel that those things are aligned. So I think that is what integrity would mean to me.
How important is integrity for you on your personal scale of values? And maybe you can give it a number between 1 and 10.
It is, I mean, I'm like arguing with myself back and forth a little bit because on one hand, it feels like it's the base of the scale. Like it's not even on the scale because it's like an element of the scale, which is, I guess, also to say 10 for sure. Very, very important in my scale of values.
Is there somebody especially of integrity for you? And what for?
The person that is coming to my mind, I think there are many, but the person that is specifically coming to my mind is a marine biologist by the name of Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. She is my favorite climate scientist, and I feel like the word integrity for me comes up with her because she brings her whole self into her climate work. She happens to be Black, and that's really like at the intersection of race issues globally and inequity globally, as well as climate. She brings her whole self into that conversation and brings these issues together. And I think that that is a lot of, or that's at least a component of integrity that is extremely important, is integrity in multiple areas of your life and bringing things together for people. And she very much lives her values as well. And she continually does the work that she's called to do. And so that is, those are all pieces of the recipe, I think, for integrity.
How of integrity do you perceive yourself? And maybe you can also give it a number on a scale of 1 and 10.
I'd like to answer this question in two ways. I feel in integrity probably like a 3 if I'm thinking about the way in which I would like to operate in this world. And I say 3 because there's just a lot of things happening right now where I don't have the options that I would want to have to be able to live in integrity. And it is everything from when I went to buy my car, my last car, which was 8 years ago, and I went to every dealership desperately seeking like a car with like way better gas mileage than any of them had. And knowing I couldn't buy an electric vehicle because I have no infrastructure for charging in the place where I live. And so like the way that I would want to be living my integrity, which is like getting rid of fossil fuels completely, was not available to me. I think this happens to lots and lots of people. And I think this is a part of what is so painful right now about living is it's like, I don't want to be living in these systems. I don't want to be complicit. I don't want to be cooperating in these. I mean, every time I, buy something at the grocery store and it has plastic in it, it's really, or it's wrapped in plastic, or, it's so painful to me. And yes, I have my like bags where I can, get bulk things or make sure that I'm not taking extra plastic. But some things I just literally can't get right now without it. And so the question becomes for me a struggle about, do I go without this thing? And in some cases, yes, I do go without this thing. Or do I forgive myself that I'm living in a world right now where we've wrapped everything in plastic? And yes, I do then sometimes forgive myself. So it's like a continual balance. So the feeling that I often have is that I'm living completely out of integrity, and not because of what I'm doing, but because of the way we've just sort of like built the world right now. The second response to that answer is I would give myself probably a 10. I try really, really hard to look at all of my actions in a way that like maybe would drive some other people insane trying to think about this. But I think it's important to, as a human right now living on this planet, to think about how our actions and how what we're doing are affecting ourselves and also affecting everyone else around the globe. And a piece of that I also just want to bring down into my immediate circle. I try really hard to live in right relationship with the people with whom I am in relationship. And so that means supporting people when they're having a hard time, or that means holding up my boundaries in a loving way, or, like it goes on and on. So I try to center my life around integrity.
Do you think that integrity is important when you think of the challenges that we face in the world?
Yes, I do. Yeah, absolutely. Something that haunts me often is when people say, well, if I didn't do this, someone else would just do it. And that may be true. It may be true that someone else will just do it. But I also think it's an absolute excuse, and I refuse. If somebody else is doing something, that's their business. And and oftentimes it like affects all the rest of us as well. But I just won't be party to that. And I think if more people had that attitude, and I just see it in a lot of different places, whether it's like businesses saying like, we have to engage in bribes because like, if we don't, like somebody else will just do it and they'll get the like income from this. And then they fool themselves about we're better somehow than the other person who like or company that might do this. So like we need to do this because like we're doing less harm. I think it goes from like small to big, like, I'm cheating on this thing because everyone else is doing and everyone else is doing it and I don't want to be a sucker. Or, I'm going to take advantage of this because if I don't, somebody else is going to take advantage of this. And this is not okay. Like this is not living in integrity, but people can fool themselves because everyone else seems to be doing it or somebody else will take advantage. So this is just like a small way, I think, if we catch ourselves saying, this doesn't quite feel right, but you know what, like somebody else will do it and I want to like take advantage of that. I think we need to really ask ourselves, should we engage in that? Because it starts with us. Yeah, it starts with us to say no.
What would be possible if the level of integrity would rise significantly on the whole planet?
I just want to say that first of all, like my chest just felt so open when you asked that question. And I don't think we dream enough. And I think we try to protect ourselves and we try to tell ourselves, oh, it's just not going to happen. So I'm not going to even entertain that. And a practice of resistance is to actually engage in that beautiful dreaming. So thank you for that question, first of all. My initial response from every cell of my body is almost anything would be possible, frankly. Whew. And I think that's right. And I don't want people to mistake that as it's going to be just easy or automatic, but that was not the question. The question was what would be possible, not what would be easy or what's definitely going to happen. So anything, almost anything would be possible. The limits are the closed system of the planet that we have, that we live on, and some rules of physics maybe, but there's not a lot that's outside of our creation, and we've created a lot of beautiful things as humans, and we've also just done a lot of terrible things, and ultimately, I think if we raised our integrity, we could start to minimize those terrible things that we've been doing and start to maximize the beautiful things that we've been doing.
Are there specific issues that you face in your private life or in your work situation in terms of integrity? And how do you deal with them?
Something I've been thinking about the what is called the justice system in the US, but is actually a very punitive, punishing system and is not about justice. And when that gets reflected in the larger world, we get just levels of crime and levels of poverty and levels of just basically hatred and loneliness. I don't believe in throwing people away, and I don't believe that people are the worst thing that they've done. I do ask myself, by isolating, people who have perpetrated wrongdoing, what do we create on a macro level? And then this is a question for me of integrity, of how do I serve the work and the humanity and the good for the individuals involved, but also for the type of world that we're creating. On the other side of this, people who are victims are often the ones who are actually ostracized and pushed out and made to feel crazy and made to feel no, that actually didn't happen because I just can't handle that this person I love could have done that. And so what do we do as well for the humanity of people who are victims? And how do we treat that? And that comes back to me with the Me Too movement right now, of a lot of women standing up and saying yes, I have been sexually harassed too. Yes, I have had these terrible things happen from men. Yes, I have been raped too. And society looking at that a little bit and things actually happening as a way to consequences coming down. And are these the right consequences for the people who have perpetrated these things? I'm not sure. But what I am sure about is that by not talking about it, by denying it, by pushing it away, by shoving it under the rug, we have not created goodness out of this. It has maybe been easier for society as a whole, but it has been much harder for individuals. It's really hard to be in integrity. It's a path that we shy away from sometimes because it is not the easy, avoiding, distracting kind of way through, but it's so rich. It's so much richer. I feel I don't even know. I don't even know what the word for the feeling is, but I am sure that my life is much richer and much deeper, and I feel more myself and I feel better about myself by engaging in these issues.
does the society you actually live in allows you to live in full integrity or in integrity with your values?
Love that you have this question in here. Thank you for that. Yeah, I did touch on that because that's where it comes from a lot for me. And I think the way that I want to talk about this question now and what's coming up for me, because clearly I said, no, I don't feel like it is allowing me to live in integrity with my values. And then the question is, what do we do with that? Because I also don't want to be a person that just says, this is terrible. And so there's nothing I can do about that, because I also don't believe that at all. And I don't think we can afford to believe that. And I think what is weird and ironic is that it's, even if you recognize this, if it is your belief that there's nothing I can do about this, we just continue to create these patterns because we just continue to go along. So the question becomes then how to create integrity within these systems, I think, as a way to push them forward and as a way to think about and recognize that we may never get there ourselves, but I don't think about it for just myself. I think about 500 years from now, how far can we go with this, such that the generations ahead of us are more in integrity, can live more in integrity because of the foundation that we're working on. And also that a lot of people before us have started building this as well. And maybe it's a job that will never be done, and that's okay. It's beautiful work to be doing anyway.
What is the role of integrity in the work you do?
The simplest answer that I can give about this is the role of integrity in the work that I do is to be continually committed to working towards the world that I want to live in, instead of supporting and working towards the world that we have that I see that's creating a lot of harm.
Is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, there is. Thank you. The question that got posed for me when we first met, just within this work, is connecting this word integrity and future. That was a revelation to me, not in the way of really changing my thinking necessarily about integrity, but situating it in and anchoring it into actually, no, it wasn't an anchoring. It was a North Star. So I was anchored in integrity, I think, and foundationally firm in integrity. And a lot of the work that I do is about climate. One of the issues that we've gotten ourselves into with climate is that we thought the future was far away and that somehow we would deal with the problem of climate change in some distant future. And the future is not that far away. And in fact, it's here, especially with climate change, but with a bunch of other things. And the future always keeps coming as well. And you can see it. It's reflected in the kids today that are really leading a lot of the climate movement, because for them, this future of 50 years is in their lifetimes and is it's in their being, it's in their potential already. And if we don't anchor our integrity into into this moment, but with an eye towards the future, I think it can get us into a lot of difficulty. And it has gotten us into a lot of difficulty. So there are lots of ways right now in which we can be in integrity with things like current laws, or just current practices, that we can be in integrity with those, but that are not serving us in the future and are likely not serving like a lot of people currently. Let's just also be clear about that. But you can wash your hands of it a little bit. I want people to have more of a responsibility towards thinking about the future and what is we're actually creating. And I want us to do that together, and I want us to do it boldly, and I want us to do it while taking care of what is happening also right now. It is not wrong that these companies are saying, we have these employees that we, that we feel that we need to make sure that them and their families are fed. We are the way in which like these employees are taking care of their needs. And that's true. And I'm not asking them to change immediately and tomorrow and to just like completely, but like, can you be on that journey? I'm asking you to be on that journey and to commit to that journey and to move as quickly as you possibly can. That's what I'm asking. And that's what I think it means to be in integrity for the future. I did not know it was going to come out here, but thank you for this opportunity. I mean, it clearly is some things that I feel quite passionately about.
I can feel the passion. And it was really like something is talking through you. Yeah. It has a deep root.
So now I see the joy. I mean, this is very joyful. Like it's amazing. Thank you for creating the space and the invitation. Like I love this invitation, and that is, I didn't know I needed this invitation, but I did. So thank you.